Hey YouTube, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today I want to do a quick first impressions on this Kizer, but before I do that, I want to talk about the company in general just a little bit and some of the experiences I've had buying Kizers and why, you know, they've got a renewed interest to me. Okay, so I'm going to share that. Before I go on though, I do want to say I recently have set up an Amazon store and I'll put the link in the description box below. And in there you'll find my favorite Kizer models, and if they're available, I will also put the two knives that I'm gonna have in this video down there as well. Let me talk just a little bit about the company in general, guys. Overall, I've had probably 15 Kizers or so, and they have been fairly good in terms of delivering quality of materials, construction, fit and finish. You know, the action is generally pretty good. I'm going to use the Quicksilver to just demonstrate for a second. So on this knife, you're getting, you know, a titanium frame lock that functions very well. You're getting S35VN on the steel. And you're getting an action that is, you know, bearing pivot that's pretty darn smooth. The detent is not ideal on this particular knife, but overall it's pretty darn good. And that's what I've come to expect from Kizer, especially in terms of the Bladesmith series. There's actually another name for, they're not Bladesmith when they're Kizer designs. I can't remember what that name is, but from the Bladesmith series and the Vanguard series. Haven't messed with any of the Tangrams. If some of you are out there watching and wouldn't mind sending me one or two of the Tangram models, that would be appreciated. They are available on Amazon.com, but they don't ship to Canada very specifically. So even if I, you know, had the money to buy one, which I do, and wanted to, I can't actually, they won't ship it to me. So that's why I haven't gotten my hands on one yet. And I haven't bothered to go through the trouble of shipping to a friend in the US and having them send it up. That's, you know, for a $30 knife, it's hard to justify. Anyway, moving on with the rest of our discussion. So what am I saying about Kizer? Number one, I've been overall pretty impressed with the quality, pretty impressed with the materials, pretty happy with the action. From time to time, I've had one where, you know, I didn't like the detent or it wasn't as smooth as I wanted, but I've never had one that wouldn't function, okay? The other thing I would say is they have a lot of designs and not all of them are very appealing to me. And that's gonna be true of any company with lots of designs. Specifically, you may recall, I had the Dorado on this channel and I found it to be one of the ugliest knives I've seen. But even on that knife, I had to admit that in terms of function and ergonomics, it was very, very good. All right, so let's go ahead now and move on to number one, getting this knife opened up so you can take a look at what you're getting ready to see. But while I'm doing that, I want to talk about buying Kizers. By the way, they do tend to offer a really good presentation, nice box, another sort of crush-proof box inside. And then you've got the nice Kizer pouch that we're kind of getting familiar with. So let's pop that out. Don't know why I'm all thumbs here today. You're also going to get your microfiber cloth and there is some paperwork in there. Move that out of the way and get this knife out. This is the Kizer Corto. I have opened it up. I repackaged it because I wanted to be able to kind of talk about the packaging a little bit, which is quite good. And so again, you know, they're doing a good job of delivering quality for what you pay. But here's the main thing that I want to talk about along those lines. What often happens with Kizers is they come out and there's a lot of excitement and they're really pushing a particular design or maker or partnership or whatever. They come out and they're fairly expensive, you know, so you'd be paying about the same as a ZT, 200 to, you know, 200 to 250, let's say. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. However, what's really interesting about them is they don't tend to stay at that price very often. Kizer is one of those companies that has a lot of sales. Now that means a couple of things. Number one, they don't tend to hold their value super well. So that knife that you just loved and you had to have, and so you paid 200 and some odd for it, when you go to resell it, you're not going to get even close to that, generally speaking, unless you sell it within a few days. Well, there's still, you know, the hype is still high on that particular model and everyone's looking for it. But, you know, you keep it for a few months and when you go to sell it, you're not going to get what you paid or even close to what you paid. Now, that can be good and bad. And here's the good side of that. If you like good quality knives, okay, just wait, okay? Be a little bit patient. And often that Kizer that you are absolutely in love with will drop substantially, okay? And especially because there's a number of places and a number of different ways that you'll see Kizer sales. Sometimes on eBay, you'll see Kizer models really, really reduced. You'll see them on Mass Drop. You'll see, you know, I think last year, every year, Blade HQ seems to have a big Kizer sale, and so do a number of the other big retailers like Knife Works and Knife Center and all that. So you definitely have some options when it comes to buying what's a pretty darn good knife. And if you think about what you're getting for what you're paying, now the value equation really starts to be a winning equation for the consumer. So a knife like this that's been out for a little while, you know, you may be able to pick one of these up for, you know, between $100 and $150, which is really, really nice. And if you think about what's available in that price point, that really changes the game. You're rarely seeing things of this level at this level of quality. You know, a good example is the recent, you know, failures that Ontario Knives has had with the Trinity and the 4 squared or 2 squared, the Carter 4 squared or something like that. You know, where the quality has just not been there. There's been a lot of complaints in the reviews. And, you know, why bother when you know that you can get a Kizer that 2 years ago was $220 and now it's $140. So it's right in that ballpark, and you know you're not likely to get any of those issues. Plus, there are usually tons of reviews out there, and you can really get a good handle on what you're going to be getting. Now, some models, you don't see that. If you go to buy a Kizer Cane, if you go to buy a few of their models are still a little steep, but given enough time, even those are going to start to come down, or you're going to see like a Mass Drop that you can get involved in or something like that to pick them up. So that's the thing that's really been impressing me about Kizer is they go on sale and you can end up getting a really, really nice knife for a great price. And that's how I ended up picking this one up. I first saw this on EDC Reviews channel, which is a channel I highly recommend. And so I wanted to pick one up, but nobody else has really talked about this knife all that much. So I wanted to go ahead and give you a quick first impressions so that you wouldn't have to wait for my full review. So let's do that now very quickly. This is, you know, fitting well the description that I've already given you. You've got S35VN with this sort of hybrid between a drop point and a Wharncliffe blade shape, nice full flat grind, decently thin edge geometry, comfortable in hand. The one thing I really like about this knife is you get a lot of cutting edge in a relatively small package. This is a knife that's actually smaller than what I normally like, but it's got all the blade length that I feel like is often missing from smaller knives, and for that reason, I really, really enjoy it. Now, it does still have this pivot, which I hate, and I've often talked about that. This particular model is blue anodized with brown G10. There is a model that I think is plain titanium with black and green G10. I could be wrong about that, but I know there's a different color variation available here. No milling internally, but there's not a lot of material here anyway, so it's not overly heavy. You've got a spring clip, single position clip, obviously titanium frame lock with a lock bar insert. One thing that's different about this guy is, let's see if you can see it. Yeah, so you can see phosphor bronze washers in there rather than the bearings that we're used to seeing on Kizers. And that's okay. I've got a nice little sunbeam creeping into the video. You can tell I've been talking too long because the sun has moved a little bit on me. So now that we've got sort of the main features here, by the way, not a flipper, it's thumb stud deployment only, which means if you're in Canada wanting to order this from the States, you're pretty safe doing that. 7 and just a little over 5/8 on the overall length. Blade length is solidly just a hair under, like a 32nd under 3.5 inches, which is the point I was making. So you've got a 7 and 5/8 knife with a full 3.5 inch blade, which is really, really nice. 4 1/4 inches on the handle. Let's see if I'm getting that right. A little over 4 1/4 on the handle. So maybe 4 5/16. So that's pretty nice size, pretty easy to carry. Where do I feel like this knife? Oh yeah, I should give you a weight. I forgot to turn this on before the video, so we might not be in the right units. It looks like we are. 3.6 ounces, which is, you know, it's not amazing for a knife at 7 5/8 inches, but it's still pretty darn comfortable. So this is a knife you're easily going to feel comfortable carrying and using. Finally, my overall thoughts on this, or my thoughts on where this knife fits, this is solidly an EDC knife. Okay, I wouldn't call this overly tactical. I wouldn't call it, you know, an outdoor knife at all. I think this is just a really solid, small-sized or medium-sized everyday carry knife. This, you know, is going to have some of those other features. This is the Quicksilver again, just to remind you. Now, let me finish this video off with one important detail, and that is my favorite Kizers. So the Intrepid is probably their most standout model to me, either in the Vanguard or the Bladesmith series. The other two models that I feel like are real standouts are a little small for me, but I know most of you are fine with a 3-inch blade, and so the T1 is fantastic. Now, by the way, if anyone from Kizer is listening, if you would make a Kizer T1 2, okay, that is a little bit bigger. Give it a 3.5-inch blade, make it close to 8 inches. That would be like the most perfect knife in existence. Totally, totally phenomenal. The other knife, of course, would be the Gemini, which again is a total win, well loved. And you will find those knives in my Amazon store that I talked about at the beginning. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon.